So I wanted to discuss generational miseducation in black men. Now, this is definitely a cultural issue. Different cultures have experienced this in different ways, but I want to talk about what I know. So I'm going to stick to my culture with African American males. So to develop emotion, you have to have the freedom to do so. If you're raising children now, you want to make sure that they are emotionally mature. Maybe you go through the gamut of teaching them their emotions. What I find with African Americans, men and women, but mostly males, is that generationally they have not had the openness to express emotions. If you were walking down the street and you were smiling, that was not allowed with our grandparents, because if you were a black man walking down the street smiling, not only would you be questioned to which you have to be happy about, but if there was a white woman in the way or in the area, you could be murdered, lynched, hung, tortured, castrated for possibly smiling at a white woman. You could be smiling because you just passed a math test, or maybe you got some new shoes when you had holes in your shoes as a child. But you could literally be murdered for walking down the street with a smile on your face. So when it comes to the range of emotions that African American men could have, usually it was happiness for a split second, and a lot of it was anger. If you were happy with your family could be taken away from you anytime, and you were not allowed a lot of wins as an African American man. And so when it comes to teaching generationally emotional health, that was something that was not done. You can't teach your child that there are other emotions like disappointment. Most of the time with our parents, disappointment was just shown with anger. It was never even said, "Oh, I'm disappointed in you, son," or "I'm disappointed in you, daughter." There was just anger. So the gamut of emotions for a lot of African Americans was happy, and then you went back to reality, which was not very happy reality, and then it was anger. The emotions in between, like disappointment, sorrow, down to depression, which was always this magical cure about Jesus, which does not work for people who have mental disorders and mental handicaps. And then that wasn't even something that was processed, because you were looked at, and this is where I go to other cultures, depression is looked at as a weakness. That's not something you have. That's not something that you express. It's dishonorable to your family that somebody would be having depression. These emotions were not allotted. So when you have relationships with people, a lot of people are very inept when it comes to their emotional range. So a lot of it just is one-sided, is black and white. Either you're happy or you're angry. But there are so many other emotions, and it's hard for people to even admit they have other emotions, that when it comes to communicating with one another, men to women, or same-sex relationships, but when it comes to communicating at all, a lot of us are emotionally miseducated and emotionally handicapped, and that causes a lot of problems. So my challenge to anybody working on themselves is get out a list on Google of different emotions and see where you land with some of them. I've had to talk people through. So it wasn't that you were mad, it was that you were disappointed in your child. And I think saying that to a child is a lot more effective than saying I'm mad, or just showing that you're mad. But even with that, there are a lot of other emotions between happy and angry. And emotional education, emotional maturity is something I think a lot of people, not just African Americans, but a lot of people should work on. Especially to have healthy relationships, be it with your kids or be it with a mate.